Hey everybody, welcome back to All Fiction is Fantasy. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on All Fiction is Fantasy, we're going to do a quick spoiler-free review of Nifft the Lean, written by Michael Shea, originally published in 1982. In the near future, I will be following up this quick review with a longer, detailed, spoiler-filled discussion with a buddy of mine who is also reading this. I want to give out a huge thank you to a viewer of the Dungeon Dive, my board game channel, named Charles, who a while ago sent me this copy of Nifft the Lean to read. And thank you so much, Charles, because you have introduced me to what is one of my favorite fantasy novels of all time. This novel here is in my top 5 fantasy novels of all time. I absolutely love this. There were multiple times while I was reading this where I made audible noises. Either I laughed or cheered or gasped. This book is just overflowing with one amazing moment after another. So Nifft the Lean, it's a collection of 3 short stories and a novel-length short story, or I guess a novel-length story, I should say. And it's definitely in the flavor, in the vein, in the same kind of school as something like Fafhrd and Grey Mouser. But I actually like this more than even my favorite Fafhrd and Grey Mouser book. It's kind of a buddy sword and sorcery novel. It's about a couple of thieves/adventurers who are always getting in way over their head, but they always manage to come out on top, but rarely unscathed. Michael Shea is, if anything, an exquisite writer of detail. His description of scenery, of setting, is just masterful. If you've ever wondered what Hieronymus Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights might look like in prose form, this is it. If Bosch wrote weird sword and sorcery fiction, he might have written something like Nifft the Lean. It's otherworldly and bizarre, but it doesn't feel like any kind of drug-induced psychedelic novel. The otherworldliness in Nifft the Lean has a tangible and very physical quality to it. Shea expertly uses different voices with a brilliant framing device in which a character named Shag Margold, a Nifft the Lean historian and expert, introduces each of the 4 stories in an academic fashion, providing the reader of the details in which the tale was written, who might have written it, and under what circumstances. Through these framing devices, Shea sets these he gives these stories a historical context, even though the historical context is fake. It adds this kind of meta layer to it, that's something that you might find in a Lovecraftian story where a narrator is mixing in fact and fiction. What's also interesting is that Nifft, the main character, isn't always the narrator of these stories, even though they're mostly written in first-person point of view. We are reading stories written by other people as Nifft the Lean. It takes the whole unreliable narrator thing to a whole new level. As an example here, we can look at the beginning of the second story. Let me find it real quick. So here we have Shag Margold's preface to The Pearls of the Vampire Queen. This account is the work of Ellen Arryn, known perhaps equally well as Grey Malkin Mary. Something I flatter myself I would know even were the manuscript not written in her unmistakable script, which is both exceedingly minuscule and almost preternaturally legible. But what's interesting is the story itself is actually written in the first person, so somebody else is writing as Nifft the Lean, conveying these stories. So it takes the idea of the unreliable narrator up like 10 different levels. It's not just Nifft the Lean being unreliable, but it's somebody else writing about Nifft the Lean in the first person. I do want to read one passage just to kind of show, just to illustrate how good of a writer Michael Shea is. So this is from the third story, and the third story here is called The Fishing of the Demon Sea. Though we marched atop the salt bluffs, We found our eyes and minds constantly entangled with the vivid jetsam cluttering the beach below, and what we saw there had soon roused us from our despairing stupor, for though our spirits were jaded with terrors and atrocities, those sights revealed to us new dimensions of demonic activity. Some of that bright tangle on the black strand was merely the detritus of lower life forms indigenous to the sea, broken coral branches thick with budding rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, or uprooted crinoids whose torn husks were purest gold. Such common objects bespoke nothing beyond the ocean's grotesque fecundity, but equally numerous were products of art, of active and surely malign intelligence, wrought chalices of gold with elaborate silver inlay, tiaras of gem-studded ever-bright, shaped and sized to crown no human skull, shattered triptychs whose fragmented images were vivid as hallucination. There was a broken chair, elaborately hinged and barbed, designed to hold unimaginable shapes and unconjecturable postures, and we saw several battle helms with triads of opalescent eyes inset in the visors, tumbling empty in the foam. All such evidences of active artifice, serving unguessable aims, proclaimed the sea's hidden cunning, its vast, unbreathing population aboil with a million malefic purposes. Yet, this was only the inanimate portion of what lay scrambled on the dark gravel. Shore life abounded. The human form was so much a part of its makeup that we could not always tell whether we were looking at demon hybrids native to the place or the deformed thralls of demon kind. If even half of them were captives, then truly our race has fed multitudes to the subworld's endless appetite for our woe. The lifeless wealth on the beaches, clearly a slight fraction of what the depths contain, showed plainly enough the bait that has drawn so many luckless souls within the subworld's grip, most commonly through ambitious and uninformed spell dabbling. And surely it is dangerously easy nowadays, most especially in Karnheim, to buy the power to call up entities which can only be dominated and put down again by a degree of power not even generally understood, let alone purchasable by any overweening dilettante. Holy shit, that is fantastic writing. I mean, Michael Shea's prose is just head and shoulders above any other fantasy writer of this time. Absolutely amazing. So good. Mind blowing. Shea's confidence as a writer just oozes from every page. And his confidence in the reader to get it. This is a smart novel. And Shea never doubts that we, the reader, will be able to keep up with his description, with his prose, with his style, and with what he is portraying. Now, there were a few times that I lost the plot, that I lost exactly what he was conveying, just because sometimes the prose is so ornate. And I had to go back and reread things and put things together and puzzle things together a few moments, especially in the final story. The final story is very, very weird. And that is probably my main criticism, is I would have ordered the stories a little bit differently. I would have kept stories 1 and 2 in the same order, but I would have put the 4th story in at the 3rd story and ended with that Demon Sea story because it's such an epic narrative. So it's very, very unfortunate that the book is completely out of print. It's very hard to find. It's getting very expensive. I think this copy here cost me about $50. I've seen this copy for about the same price. I've seen super mint, like just pristine copies of the DAW version going for about $100. I don't think it's ever been reprinted past this initial printing. And it's not in print at all anymore. And it's not in any ebook form, which is really, really unfortunate because this thing should be more celebrated. It should be more read. Nifft the Lean needs to come back into print. But yeah, so that was just a really quick review. Absolutely masterful. If you can find this book and you have not read it, track it down. This is one of those books that I would say, you know what, do just about anything you can to get a copy of Nifft and read it, because it has just absolutely blown my mind. I love it to death. And thank you so much to Charles for donating this copy and allowing me the opportunity to just absolutely enjoy and devour Michael Shea's Nifft. Coming up soon, we will have a detailed discussion in which me and my buddy are going to talk in great detail with lots of spoilers about Nifft and about all of the different stories and all of the different things that happen. So stay tuned for that, and we will talk to you guys later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.